Welcome back, Wall 414 fans, to another Commander deck profile. In this episode, we're going to be going over my Mr. House President and CEO deck. And Mr. House, I think, is a commander that a lot of people don't take seriously. I think a lot of people just shove every card that rolls a dice into their Mr. House deck, then they lose a lot of games. And then they go, oh, Mr. House, he's just a dice rolling commander. It's not a serious deck. And oh well, but not me. I'm obsessed with Fallout New Vegas, and I've taken that obsession, I'm very competitive, into forming a cohesive, consistent Mr. House deck that relies on him. There's a lot of high budget lists that just use a lot of the generic treasure good stuff. This isn't that. This is a concise, compact, budget Mr. House deck list, and a lot of people brag about their wins, but I'm going to brag about my losses here. I've taken Mr. House, I've put all the dice roll cards in, and I've lost, and I've said this card is bad, and I've lost again, and I've said this card is bad. Refining down this deck list, now when I play it, I win games, it works very consistently, and it bucks a lot of the conventional trends of a Mr. House deck. Not all of them, don't worry. But it really, there's a lot of challenge in the stats in this one. I cut a lot of EDH Rex staples. So if you're a Mr. House aficionado like I am, you're gonna hear some good ramblings and thoughts on the commander. If you just want the deck list, I'll pin a comment. But strap in for a good 30, maybe even more minute in-depth review of Mr. House, what works with him, what doesn't work. Then we're going to go over my deck list and go over every card in it. So strap in. The first thing you need to realize about a Mr. House deck is that it is not an aggressive deck. It is in Mardu colors, and the instinct in those colors is to be aggressive. But Mr. House is a 3-mana 0/4 that really doesn't do anything upon entering. And a lot of the dice rolling cards he relies on are clunky 4-mana creatures or artifacts that cost 5 and take 2 mana to tap, and things of that slow, bulky nature. So you need to lean away from these aggressive playstyles. And in that end, I've cut some cards for, like, example, the Brazen Dwarf, Ingenious Artillerist, and Reckless Fireweaver that a lot of people place in their Mr. House decks. They have very high percentage on EDH Rec, and you just can't include them because they're so aggressive. They get the whole table looking at you. That Mr. House does not have the mana efficiency and aggressiveness to back up what these cards represent. Because you play that Reckless Fireweaver, you play like Mr. House, you're doing nothing except doing 1 damage to everyone. Now everyone's looking at you. And then you play Hoarding Ogre next turn. You don't even generate any robots or treasure. You're just like sitting there, you're like playing your 4-mana 3/3, but everyone harps on you like you're super aggressive. You need to stick away from the aggressive nature of Mardu and stay away from these group slug type effects. And you also need to stay away from similar aristocrats types effects from Mirkwood Bats, for example, because aristocrats is a tough strategy to keep everything together with all your tokens and your sack outlets and your payoffs. And Mr. House needs a whole other dice rolling engine to generate his tokens. This is not like Caesar, where the commander is an engine helping you keep that aristocrat stuff running smoothly. Mr. House is clunky, clunky, clunky. And so you need to stay away from aggression, and you need to stay away from aristocrat style cards. Another thing you need to stay away from with Mr. House is cards that only roll 6-sided dice. So I've cut a lot of cards like these that I obviously bought and tried out, and they're just not worth it if it rolls a 6-sided dice. I have 2 cards in the deck that roll 6-sided die, and I really desperately want to cut them, but there are so few actually decent, I won't even say decent, playable dice rolling cards, and you'll see the philosophy reasons behind including them. But you want to stay away from six-sided die cards. And that also applies to Mr. House's activated ability. Mr. House's activated ability is terrible. It costs 4 mana just to roll some dice. Oh, what a waste. And it uses your treasure tokens, and it doesn't get them back. And so you really want to stay away from this. And in that respect, you also need to stay away from cards that make treasures. This is one of the more controversial opinions, but I've really found it to be true, is that this deck doesn't actually care about having treasure generators. Because you're not using Mr. House's activated ability, and he does make treasures, but besides that, it doesn't really synergize with him in any actual way. And you're already having a hard enough time getting your dice rolling cards out. Adding a bunch of treasure generators isn't really getting you towards that game plan. And to that end, I've cut a lot of cards that are seen in many of these decks, like Pitiless Plunderer, Mahadi, Jan Jansen, Stormkiln Artist. I've tried all these cards out, and I'm telling you, you don't want the extra treasure generators clogging up your hands and not progressing towards your dice rolling game plan. If you're running the $1,000 budget deck that just runs all the generic best treasure stuff, I'd just take Mr. House out as the commander. Then you can go run all that stuff all you like. But if you're looking to roll dice, you need to stay away from the Reckless Fireweavers, and you need to stay away from the Jan Jansens and treasure generators, and you need to be 100% committed and focused to rolling dice, and those dice being D20s. Now, when you're rolling those D20s, there's even more stuff you need to stay away from. The first is stuff that is a nombo with Mr. House. The big example is Lazelle's Acrobatics. Even I recognized that was a nombo, so I didn't buy it. But these cards, Revivify, Dance Macabre, they roll D20s, but Mr. House is barely on the field when you roll those D20s. And Dance Macabre, you have to sacrifice a non-token creature. So you gotta sacrifice Mr. House, or you gotta sacrifice one of your creatures that rolls a D20 on attack. These are Nombo type cards. Lazelle's Acrobatics is another one. Thunderwave is another one. And you gotta make sure that Mr. House is on the field when these D20s are being rolled. Another thing you need to stay away from with your cards that roll D20s are cards that roll a D20 once and are not good. An example of this would be Recruitment Drive. You would never play a 3-mana sorcery that says create 2/2/2 White Knight creature tokens in Mr. House. But it says roll a D20, so you put it in, you cast it, you roll your D20, you get your trigger, and then you realize, I'm a card down. This didn't really do anything that I really needed besides rolling the D20. And it's just a bad inclusion and doesn't do anything towards our game plan. We want to focus on cards that roll a D20 on attack so they can roll multiple over the course of turns. Or cards that, tap and roll a D20 every turn. Those need to be the focus of your deck. And cards like Treasure Chest or Berserker's Frenzy that are otherwise bad cards but roll 1 D20 are things you need to stay away from. We need to focus on consistent dice roll every single turn cards. So now that we've gone over what to avoid, we'll go over the core of the deck, and these are your repeatable dice rollers. First we'll go over the creatures. Here's the Lightfoot Rogue. It's a 2 mana, 1 and a black, and when it attacks, you roll a d20. It gets some form of death touch, but it doesn't matter. It rolls your d20 every time you attack, and people don't like blocking it because it always gets death touch no matter what you roll. Next is the Chaos Dragon, 3 mana 4/4 with flying and haste. It restricts who it attacks based on dice rolls, but you roll a d20 at the beginning of combat on your turn. You can theoretically be unable to attack with this, but it doesn't matter because you still get the d20 rolling trigger. Hoarding Ogre is a 4 mana, 3 and a red, and when it attacks, roll a d20 and you create treasure tokens. The Iron Mastiff is a 4 mana artifact creature, very relevant, and make sure you resolve this right. You roll a d20 for each player being attacked and ignore all but the highest roll. This is the only card that has actually a downside if you roll a 1 through 9, but otherwise it actually is really good because we love our artifact stuff in this deck, as you will see. Next we got Delano Wild Mage. Sorry about including this one. The card's like 10, 15 bucks now. It was like 2 bucks when I bought it, but it works with Deadpool. It's 3 and a red, and when it attacks, you can create tapped and attacking tokens that are copies of that creature. You can even do it with Mr. House if you want to get some extra triggers, if you have some other stuff available, but you just have to time it correctly. And it's a very good include, not only because of its effect, but also because it rolls a die. So you might have to spend a little money to get this one, so sorry about that. Then you got the Chaos Chandler, 2 and 2 red, and when it attacks, you get some Impulse Draw. It kind of sucks that the Impulse Draw, you have to play them this turn after you attack. So just remember to not play your land for turn if you can help it when you have Chaos Chandler, but we got to include him. He's actually one of the better dice rollers in the deck. Then here's one of my rules getting broken by the Celebrate 1000. It's a 5-mana artifact creature, and so it has a lot of synergy there. And at the beginning of combat, doesn't even need you to attack. You get to roll 2 6-sided dice. So it gets various keywords depending on the result. And even though it rolls 6-sided die, I've decided to include it just because it's repeatable and you don't need to attack with it, and it's an artifact creature. It has just enough synergy to be playable. And next we'll move on to our non-creature dice rollers. I said avoid the single dice rollers, but there are a few cards that manage to make the cut and be good enough on their own to be included. Contraband Livestock is one of those. It is a 2-mana exile target creature, and you roll a d20. So even though it's pretty much a worse Swords to Plowshares, it rolls the d20, and it's just good enough to get the include. Miracle's Edict is a 2-mana, and this one can at least go neutral on card advantage with one opponent, so I've deemed that just playable enough to include as a one-time die roller. And Will's Reversal is actually a pretty good card. It gets beaten out in regular decks by Deflecting Swat or Bolt Bend, but you could theoretically be running this in an extremely budget deck, and it's definitely good enough to get a slot in here. For 2 and a red, you can choose target spell or ability, 1 or more targets, and choose new targets, and possibly copy it, depending on what you roll. So that was deemed good enough, and then we go to the best cards in the deck. These are your artifacts that repeatedly roll dice. Component Pouch just lets you tap to roll a d20. You can also tap it for mana, but we only do that in a crisis. Here's the best card in the deck, Vexing Puzzle Box. It's a 3-mana rock that taps for any color, and you also roll a d20 while tapping for it. So this is crazy, and you'll see we really care about seeing this card. Then you get the Wand of Wonder, which is 3 and a red, then 4 mana to tap and roll a d20. You can tell this is not an aggro deck. We really care about getting value. We're playing 4 mana artifacts that cost 4 to tap, and you get each opponent to exile a card from the top of their library until they exile an instant or sorcery card, and then you can cast a varying amount of those depending on your die roll without paying the mana cost, so you can get tons of value from this and the additional value from the die roll. The Deck of Many Things is a 5-mana artifact that costs 2 to tap, and you roll a d20, and you gotta remember, you gotta subtract the number of cards in your hand. But it can either return a card at random from the graveyard, or draw 2 cards, or if you roll it, remember, you're subtracting. While your hand is empty, you can get a nat 20, and then possibly win the game, or not win the game, but kill an opponent as a sort of alternate win condition. So this card's very good. And then here's the other D6 roller. It's the Strength Testing Hammer. It's a 1-mana artifact. It's equipped 3, which sucks. And when the equipped creature attacks, you roll a 6-sided die, and you give it +X +O, where X is the result. And it's a repeated dice roller, and then this is the part that just makes it good enough to run, where if your creature has the greatest power or tied for the greatest power, you draw a card. And I think that's just good enough to run because we desperately want card draw in this deck. Then finally, the Sword of Hours, which is a 2-mana equipped 2 artifact, and it puts +1/+1 counters on your creatures, and then doubles them depending on a d12 roll. And there we go. Those 16 cards are the core of this deck, and everything else revolves around getting them and Mr. House out on the same field and using these repeatable die rolls to generate value. Most decks run about 30 on-plan cards. We have 16 cards that are on plan. So we need to fill that out a little bit and compensate for the weaknesses of those 16 dice rolling cards. The first notable weakness is that there are not many early game 2-drops. So we have a variety of early game options to supplement this. The first one is Securitron Squadron. Besides working well thematically with Mr. House, it also works well physically with Mr. House. It's a 2-mana, 2/2 with Vigilance, and whenever a creature token enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on it. It also has Squad, so you can use it late game and make a lot of these. They all stack and put various counters on it, so it's a good 2-drop to include, not only for the flavor, but also for the effect. The Loyal Apprentice, I don't see too many people running this, but it has haste, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. That gains haste. And not only is it a 2-drop filling that hole, but it also works with Mr. House, because Mr. House cares about, he creates artifact creatures. This creates artifact creatures. Mr. House, you want to build a big robot army. This contributes to the robot army. I'm not really sure why this isn't being included in too many Mr. House decks. It also has a Fallout art, so I don't know why I love this card as an include. The Steel Overseer is a 2-mana 1/1, and you can tap it to put a 1/1 counter on each artifact creature you control. This is a much better early game drop than the Reckless Fireweaver earlier, because while that draws attention to you, you can place this on the field and then just be tapping it every turn, slowly building up and powering up your robot army, but you won't be getting the ire of the group at you, and it also has a nice Fallout art, so that's always a plus. The Cyberman Patrol. It's a 2-mana 2/2 artifact creature which hits a bunch of benchmarks that you'll see later. And it also helps with late game being a finisher, giving our artifact creatures a flick 3. That means if they're blocked, the controller of the blocking creature takes 3 damage. So that's very helpful late game, and then early game it also fills out our curve, so that's helpful. Now those are the 2-drops. These are the value increasers. Mr. House has a pretty good effect, but it can be better, and the Academy manufacturer makes that better. He's a 3-mana artifact creature, 1/3, and if you would create a clue, food, or treasure, Mr. House makes a treasure, instead create one of each. This acts as a pseudo card draw, creating clues, and also works with all of our artifact support that you will see later. So this is very good. And then here's the Stride Hanger Automaton, and he is basically the Academy manufacturer, except he works with any artifact token, and instead of clues and foods, he makes 1/1 Thopters, so he contributes to our army, and I really like this guy. I didn't see too many people running him. And next we got finishers. As you can see from our dice roll cards, they lacked finishers. Alibu Ancient Witness is 5 mana, including a red and a white 4/5 artifact creature. Gives other artifact creatures you control haste. Great for the tokens we're making. And whenever one or more artifact creatures you control attack, Alibu Ancient Witness deals X damage to any target, including players. And you scry X, where X is the number of tapped artifacts you control. And we're going to be tapping those artifacts when we attack them. Great finisher. And the other one is Marionette Master. You know, we avoided the Marionette Apprentice and the other Aristocrats themed guys, but the Marionette Master works great as a finisher because it has Fabricate 3, so it'll be a 4/6, and whenever an artifact creature you can, or any artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to Marionette Master's power. So this can give you that big burn damage that you need to finish a game, or you can put it on an established board to protect yourself from a board wipe. Great finisher. This doesn't serve the same purpose as a Mirkwood Bats or a Marionette Apprentice, which are sort of early game aristocrats. This is firmly in the finisher category. Now it's time for a brief aside where we go over 2 popular cards in Mr. House that we will not be including in this deck. Will Blade of Frontiers and Barbarian class both do the same thing. If you would roll 1 or more dice, instead roll that many dice plus 1 and ignore the lowest roll. And this seems like an easy include to boost consistency, but it's actually does a lot less than you would think. And we're going to go over a little math here briefly, and I apologize. But the odds of rolling a 4 or higher when you roll a d20 is 85%, and the odds of rolling a 6 or higher is 75%. When you roll two dice, the odds of at least one being a 4 or higher is 98%, and the odds of at least one being a 6 or higher is 94%. So these cards will increase your chances of successfully activating Mr. House's ability by about, 14 to 19%, which is really not that much. And also, in terms of consistency, these cards don't roll dice on their own. These cards don't draw you into your dice rolling cards. These cards are only working when you have Mr. House already out and you have a dice roller already out. And the contrast with cards we're including, like Academy Manufactor, not only do these cards only work with Mr. House and a dice roller out, they only work when you have these things out and you roll low on the dice, which means these only help you 25% of the time that you already have your engine out. Academy Manufacturer helps you 75% of the time that you have your engine out. And you should also note that I'm only running 2 cards that boost Mr. House's effect. That's a very scarce category in our deck, and we can't be spending those card slots on cards that only work 25% of the time. And they actually work a little less than 25% of the time because you could still roll a 1 on your second roll. So while these cards are included in 95% of Mr. House decks, they're not included in mine, and they shouldn't be included in yours. Now you'll notice that in the on-plan section there were only 24 cards, and I said 30 is typical, and you'll notice that scarcity and that tons of cuts were made in the rest of the list, and that is all to make room for this section, card draw. I've played tons of Mr. House, and the things I've noticed is that he's clunky, the dice rollers are all overcosted, and basically none of them draw cards, and there's a real lack of them. And the key to making Mr. House work, which it was just present in my list, and I haven't really seen in too many other lists, is to just have an absurd amount of card draw. This consistency is what makes Mr. House work. Every single game, win or lose, with the insane amount of card draw I've included, you're going to be rolling dice. You're going to get your repeatable dice rollers out. You're going to be making robots. You're going to be making treasure. You're never going to be stuck there. You're never going to play a spell that rolls d6s, roll all ones, and be like, oh, Mr. House sucks. You're always going to be drawing cards, getting through the deck, and getting the best dice rollers out there and generating value. And to that end, there's a lot of different types of card draw in here. I've gone for a more budget list with my card draw, but this would actually be a great section of the deck to spend a little money on. And if you have any budget card draw suggestions or inclusions, would be a great place for comments, because I'm not too experienced as a Magic player to know all the old cards, and I'm sure you could find some great includes, but I have a good list of card drawers that have really been working for me that I'll go through now. The first ones, Night's Whisper, Sign in Blood, Read the Bones, and Painful Truths. They're the typical 4 black card drawers. You want instant card draw, and you want card draw enchantments that work every turn. You want all types of card draw. Painful Truths is the one to talk about because it's very good in black 3-color decks, of which this is one. And also, we don't want to include Unexpected Windfall or Big Score, which are do not actually give card advantage but give treasure tokens. We already know that we don't care about generating treasure tokens outside of Mr. House. We also don't want Deadly Dispute or Village Rights, because this card draw is for when Mr. House is not fully operational. We don't really care about drawing too many cards when we already have Mr. House and repeatable dice rollers out. So we don't want cards that have a cost to sacrifice a creature. We want cards that just exchange life for cards. Next, we got our card draw artifacts. Skull Clamp. It's too good not to play. Idol of Oblivion. I know this one only works supposedly when we have dice rollers, but we actually generate other tokens, and it's also too good not to play. Thopter Shop. This is a bit of a deep cut. Whenever one or more artifact creatures you control die, draw a card. This ability triggers once each turn. We're running a lot of artifact creatures. This is some good card draw. It also can create a colorless Thopter token in a pinch. Symmetry Matrix. This card is actually kind of cracked in this deck. It's a 4-mana artifact. Whenever a creature with power equal to its toughness enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1. If you do, draw a card. This is not once per turn. This doesn't just work on our 3/3 robots, though it very notably does. We are running a lot of cards in this deck with power equal to their toughness. This one is really good. Lochiel Clockwork Scholar. This might be the best card in the deck. It's 2 and a white for a 2/4, and in addition to preventing all combat damage that will be dealt to attacking artifact creatures, whenever an artifact creature enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. This is once per turn. Yeah, we are playing a lot of artifact creatures. This is where artifact synergy comes in again. Morbid Opportunist. 3 mana, 2 and a black, 1/3. Whenever one or more other creatures, just in general, die, draw a card. Great repeatable card draw. Mentor of the Meek. This one is controversial. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1. If you do, draw a card. He's a 3 mana 2/2, and I think that we're running just enough power 2 or less cards to justify his inclusion. We are desperate for card draw. Also, Mr. House notably triggers him, so I have decided he's just consistent enough to include. Mangara the Diplomat. This card is a worse trouble in pairs, but it's 25 cents, so I included it. It's a 4 mana 2/4 with lifelink, and it has if an opponent attacks you with 2 or more creatures, draw a card, or when an opponent casts 2 spells, draw a card. That works. Tokasha's Welcome. One of the better cards in the deck. Whenever one or more creatures you control a mana value 3 or less enter, draw a card. This triggers once per turn. It's a 2 and a white enchantment, triggers off of Mr. House, triggers off your robots, triggers off a lot of your creatures. Wild Wasteland. This is a fun include. If you don't like this one, run Outpost Siege, but this is 2 and a red, and you skip your draw step, and at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. It's a New Vegas themed, and it's actually some pretty good card draw, so I really like it. Phyrexian Arena. People argue whether or not this card is good, but we are digging deep for card draw, so it's obviously an auto-include. For 1 and 2 black, at the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card and lose 1 life. So those are the big card draw includes that we're spending a lot of space for. And the next segment is somewhat controversial. It is tutors. We are including some tutors. I think this deck is about bracket 2. I think you could argue it's bracket 3. Feel free to argue about it with me in the comments. But I have included some tutors, and I've tried to keep it to few tutors. I assume the word few means 3 or 4. If you want to argue with me over what the word few means in the comments, go ahead. But I've included 4 tutors. They're not absurdly powerful or game changers. The first one's Steel Shaper's Gift. We're using that to get our Sword of Hours or our Strength Testing Hammer. Don't use it to get Skull Clamp. Use it responsibly. Moonsilver Key. It's a 2 mana artifact that taps for 1 mana, and you sacrifice it and search your library for an artifact card with a mana ability. That gets your Vexing Puzzle Box. Reckless Handling is a 2 mana gamble that can only search for artifacts. Also searches for Vexing Puzzle Box. And then I put him here, Oswald Fiddlebender. This is a 1 and a white for a 2/2 Gnome Artificer. And he's actually kind of absurdly cracked. If you pay a white mana and tap him, you can sacrifice an artifact and search your library for an artifact card with mana value equal to 1 plus the sacrificed artifact's mana value and put it onto the battlefield. This gets all of our 2 mana ramp and our 2 mana artifact creatures and turns them into Vexing Puzzle Box. And we're running 4 and 5 mana artifacts that are not bad to tutor for either. And you can also get Component Pouch. This guy has a lot of great targets in the deck. So that is 20 cards dedicated to drawing and tutoring, and you really need to be running this many to make Mr. House consistent enough to work. Next up is the section for removal. And you might notice this section is a little sparse, but you got to remember we got some single-use dice rollers that remove as well. So first off, Ruinous Ultimatum, auto-include in any Mardu deck in my opinion. Here's some more artifact synergy. Delete. It is X and 2 red, and delete deals X damage to each non-artifact creature and each player. Great finisher, and you'll notice a little theme here. Organic Extinction is 10 mana, and it has Improvise, and it destroys all non-artifact creatures. Their Name is Death is 6 mana, 3 black, and it destroys all non-artifact creatures. All of our board wipes are one-sided and keep our robot armies and our various fun artifact creatures all alive. So we actually run a really, really effective suite of board wipes in this deck. Next we have Dragon Spark Reactor, and I put this in removal, but it also doubles as a finisher. This card is crazy. For 1 and a red, it's an artifact that when it enters the battlefield or another artifact, put a charge counter on it, and for 4 mana you can sacrifice it, and it deals damage equal to the number of charge counters on it to target player, and that much damage to up to 1 target creature. This gets 2 charge counters every time Mr. House triggers. This gets a charge counter whenever one of your creatures comes in. That's an artifact. This gets charge counters whenever the artifact lands come in, or when your mana ramp comes in. This thing adds up quick, and it kills people. It gets you. I've built up dozens of counters on this guy. This guy is really good, and he's really good at the part of the game where you want to eliminate a player and then eliminate another player's commander with its spot removal effect. This is in like 1% of Mr. House decks. I love this card. And then we got Anguished Unmaking for 1 white and black, and as you can see, we're strapped for card slots, so we need to be able to exile target non-land permanent. So that's why Anguished Unmaking is in there. The guy who commented on my last video should be happy. I've cut Swords to Plowshares and Path to Exile because we are that desperate for slots for card draw. Next up, we have a section for Protection. And similar to removal, this all needs to be very versatile to justify its card slot, and I'd love to hear some suggestions from the comments for versatile protection spells, the poster child of which is Boros Charm. We're also running Valorous Stance, which is 1 and a white, and it gives target creature indestructible or destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater. This is worse Blacksmith Skill or worse Swords to Plowshares, but we're running it because it can do both in 1 slot. And next we have the series of protection that also double as artifact creatures for all of our artifact synergies. The first one is Skrelv Deflector Might, which is 1 mana 1/1, and it has some toxic stuff that we don't care about. We care that it's an artifact creature, and we care that by paying 2 life, or a white mana, we can give Mr. House, or I guess any other creature, but mostly Mr. House, hexproof from, you choose a color, and he gets hexproof from that color, and it can't be blocked by creatures from that color, but we care mainly about the hexproof. Another one, Paladin Dance, is 2 and a white for a 3/3 artifact creature with lifelink, and once you can exile him to give each creature you control that's an artifact or human indestructible. That's some great protection. I don't know why he's not run more. He also was Fallout themed. He's great inclusion. Then we got the Bronze Guardian, who is 4 and a white artifact creature, and he is star power and 5 toughness, and he has double strike ward 2, and he gives other artifacts you control ward 2, and his power is equal to the number of artifacts you control. So he's an artifact creature, he's a finisher, and he's protection, very versatile inclusion. Finally, we got our ramp. We're running the classic Soul Ring and Arcane Signet. You got to run Mind Stone. I said we're desperate for draw. Well, we love how Mind Stone is 2 mana ramp, and in a pinch it's draw. We can't run the Commander Sphere because we're running too many 3 mana artifacts already. I'm running the 3 Talismans. Ignore that one's not Fallout themed. And then finally, the Felwar Stone. We just got to trust that it'll be there because we're so tight on spots. We can't be running all the Signets. Finally, we're running 38 lands. It's just a budget Mardu mana base. You can look at the deck list. The notable inclusion to make sure you don't forget is Spire of Industry. We're definitely running enough artifacts for it. And I'll go over the utility lands I've chosen. The first one is War Room, which you usually don't run in 3-color decks, but not only does it have nice Fallout art, but I also mentioned how we're desperate for draw, so why not have it on our utility land? And then we have Buried Ruin, which also has a nice Fallout art and also gives a pseudo draw, allowing us to return an artifact card from the graveyard to our hand. Here's one that I really like, the Mycosynth Gardens. It can filter your mana in addition for tapping for a colorless, and it also taps for X, and it becomes a copy of target non-token artifact you control with mana value X. This allows you to copy your Vexing Puzzle Box. This allows you to copy your Component Pouch, and you can also copy non-dice rollers like Academy Manufactor. Then finally, we've got Underdark Rift. Oh, great inclusion, because for 5 mana you can tap and exile it to roll a d10, and its removal. Put target artifact, creature, or planeswalker into its owner's library beneath the top X cards. So very versatile utility lands. That's it for the Mr. House deck profile. As you can see, I've really taken the hatchet to this thing and cut out a lot of cards that are auto-includes. But I really think that the card draw, I really know that the card draw makes the deck way more consistent, way more fun to play, and way more deadly. Stepping away from that aggro, going to a more value-based deck as well will keep the heat off of you, because Mr. House is he kind of crumbles quickly, so you don't want to be getting the attention of your commander players. You want to be just slowly sitting behind the walls of Vegas, letting them fight it out over Hoover Dam, and then your Securitron army comes in at the last minute and takes the win for yourself. So I know this one's a bit controversial, so if you have any comments, feel free. I'll argue with you in the comments. I love it. And if this gets one comment, just like the last video, I'll show off my Leggett Lanius Pauper deck. I'm going to play some Pauper this weekend, so I'm going to get some games in. I might need to get a few more before I make it a full-blown deck profile, though. I have dozens of games in with Mr. House and Caesar. So that's all for this one, and I hope you enjoyed.